Friend groups are a very difficult concept to get right in a story. For every group that has well-developed, not necessarily even, but all meaningful characters, you have a plethora where either one person outshines the rest, CGX, and a bunch where certain members get pushed to the side for others, C5Ds. And sometimes this is by design, but other times it feels like the writer didn't know what to do with the full cast and just needed bodies to round out a story. For the original Duel Monsters, there is a core group of 4 friends, but it's clear from the get-go that 2 of them will be the stars, Yugi and Joey, while the other 2, Tristan and Téa, will get crowed. Yep, that's right, I'm coining this phrase now. Téa and Tristan, you got crowed. Suppose that's better than getting Hoganed? But again, the point isn't that everyone has to contribute the same amount. Rather, every character should serve a meaningful purpose anytime they are involved in the story. So the question is, did Téa and Tristan live up to their parts, or were they missed opportunities? Before we go any further, be a friend and subscribe to this channel for all the benefits of Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. Let's roll. In a story that's all about card games, the fastest way to being useless is not being able to play said game, instead being reduced to glorified cheerleader. Those aren't my words, Tristan says so himself.
Do what we do best, cheer from the sideline.
But let's back up for a second. The original Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga wasn't focused on Duel Monsters, rather it featured an assortment of various games, many of which were incredibly dangerous. A top 10 list you can check out with the card in the corner. The subversion of the Gallop anime rightfully uses the term Duel King, or King of Duelists from Duelist Kingdom onward, but if you ever wondered why the 4Kids dub peddled the title King of Games, even though Yugi was quite literally only winning one specific game, that's a carryover from the original manga as well as the literal translation of the name, Yu-Gi-Oh! To that end, a common assertion you may hear is that Téa and Tristan were intended to be far more valuable during this multi-game facet of the story, but got sidelined when Takahashi shifted focus to Duel Monsters. The example that's used to defend this position is Death Tea, the lethal amusement park Kaiba creates to exact revenge on Yugi for defeating him at card games. Yeah, you heard that correctly. Death Tea consists of 5 levels of different games Yugi and friends must win at to take down Kaiba. The key here is that while the Pharaoh wins the games on levels 4 and 5, through the first 3 levels, each one of the friend group takes the lead on winning the games. Tristan with his sharp shooting skills winning Stardust Shootout on level 1. By the way, did anyone notice he's good at a game called Stardust and then his dub voice actor went on to voice Yusei? Yugi's smarts deciphering the solution to the guillotine trap in the first half of level 2, Joey's grit and fighting skills that allow him to defeat the Chop Man in the second half of level 2, and Téa's dance skills helping the team to rhythm their way through the falling cubes on level 3. As you can see, Death Tea serves as the perfect microcosm for how the friend dynamic was going to work. Téa is good at some games, Tristan is good at some games, Joey is good at some games, Kaiba is great at all games, and the Pharaoh/Yugi are of course the king of games. But even in the original manga, that's not how it works. Death Tea is an exception to a story that otherwise sidelines Téa and Tristan the same way the later manga does. Let's go by the numbers. If I were to ask you, based on what you know from the anime, who between Joey, Tristan, and Téa appears most in the original manga and who appears least, you'd probably say Joey the most and Tristan the least. Well, of the 59 chapters of the original manga, Joey appears in 88% of them, Téa appears in 73%, and Tristan appears in 49%. Mind you that to qualify for appearing in a chapter, all that was needed was for the character to just show up in at least one panel, regardless of how much or little they contributed in that chapter. The point here is to show that Joey clearly had a more prominent role from the get-go, while Tristan had the smallest role of Yugi's 3 friends, and this is consistent in the later parts of the manga and anime, regardless of pre- or post-Duel Monsters. How about the defining aspect of the story, the games? There are 26 unique games played in the original manga. 23 of them involve Yugi and or the Pharaoh, 8 of them involve Joey, of which 3 feature just him without any teammates. Tristan and Téa, meanwhile, are in 5 and 4 respectively, all from Death Tea and Monster World, and neither of them ever play a game without Yugi and Joey. How about more qualitatively? Joey has his character arc of transitioning from former gang member to loyal friend of Yugi, an arc that has a handful of chapters dedicated to it, involving Joey coming face to face with his old gang. Other chapters involve his desire to help his family and defending Yugi. Téa appears regularly throughout the manga, but none of the chapters develop her character independent of Yugi. Her role can be split into 2 branches: damsel that Yugi must save, and falling in love with the spirit of the puzzle. Tristan, meanwhile, has no story or chapter dedicated to him. He's mostly just there to bounce off Joey's tough guy vibe, as well as serving as the source of truth with respect to Joey's backstory of gang life, because the two of them have been friends longer than the rest. So this idea that Téa and Tristan could have played a bigger role had the story not shifted to Duel Monsters is unfounded. The most damning evidence is the fact that when the story did shift, Takahashi didn't bother making a duelist out of either of them. Perhaps it would have been superfluous to have so many duels fighting on the same side, especially since the two main dueling arcs were tournament-oriented. But then the question becomes, well, okay, if they're going to be Kens in a Barbie world, how will that look? Moving into the core part of the story that most folks who watch the anime are familiar with, I think it'll be a good exercise to go through the story and pinpoint the times Téa or Tristan do something. We kick off with Duelist Kingdom, where Téa and Tristan literally have to sneak onto the ship just to stay relevant.
And these two are trespassers.
From here, Téa in the manga is just about useless, only coming in clutch with the other friends to block Pegasus's mind scan. She also admonishes Kaiba for risking his life while Yugi showed courage in throwing the duel to save him. While most of her speeches go in one ear and out the other,
I've been giving this friendship speech for years. Didn't it sink in yet?
This one is pivotal from an overarching theme standpoint. The anime treats Téa far better, as her calling out to Yugi is a big part of him snapping control back from the Pharaoh before the attack on Blue Eye's ultimate goes through. She then follows up with a duel against Mai to win Yugi the requisite star chips to enter the castle. Even though Mai throws it, it's still a show of Téa's friendship toward Yugi, in a relationship that up to this point was largely one-sided. Tristan in the anime contributes earlier on by lending his lava battle guard to Joey in advance of his duel versus Rex, which ends up coming in clutch to take down Serpent Knight Dragon. In both continuities, Tristan plays the role of secret agent, sneaking through Pegasus' castle to find Mokuba's body, a task he undertakes because it was Mokuba who stopped the falling blocks of Death Tea from crushing Tristan when he had gotten trapped at that level. I mentioned the motive because it does flesh out Tristan as a dude with real feelings and principles, with relationships beyond the core friends, and not just the muscle of the friend group. Speaking of, in the anime, he gets the added bump of knocking Yami Bakura out cold when the latter demands Mokuba's body. In retrospect, Tristan knocking Zork unconscious is perhaps the most impressive thing anyone ever did in the anime. I guess it's true, his voice does give him super strength. The two are virtually useless and legendary heroes since there's only enough pods for Yugi and Joey to take part in the game. I suppose we can give them minor props for delaying the Kaiba Corp goons from interrupting the virtual game, but the fact that the anime essentially wrote them out of the arc at least shows self-awareness and how silly it felt to have these two tagging along and doing nothing most of the way. At least they can keep each other company with stories of Tristan's middle school love life, or as the dub would like to have it.
Téa, I know what'll make all this waiting around go by faster. A game, and it's called Guess My Facial Hair.
Moving on to pre-Battle City, Tristan gets a point for rushing into the fire with Joey to save Yugi. In the manga version of this event, which takes place in the Dungeon Dice Monsters arc, it's actually only Joey who plays the hero, so another point for the anime giving Tristan something to do. Téa during this time arguably has her biggest role in the series, as this portion includes her date with the Pharaoh, further building their dynamic, and giving us the dance-off with the GOAT Yu-Gi-Oh character, a Mr. Johnny Steps. As for Battle City itself, this one is a complete no-show for both Téa and Tristan. Tristan tries to protect Serenity from the rare hunters, but himself has to be saved by Duke throwing dice at them. Tristan then repays the favor by nearly getting himself and Duke flung off the blimp. Téa's one contribution is helping Mokuba escape after the rare hunters capture them. The rest of her role is Damsel, as well as Merrick's vessel after he loses control of his body to Yami Merrick. And this is very unfortunate given that Battle City is regarded as the peak of this series, but as Téa herself says to Yugi, "You always exclude me from important moments." Virtual World is the arc where both Téa and Tristan get to duel. Hooray! With Téa picking up a victory against Crump, while Tristan takes the fall against Nesbit. As a result of this loss, his conscience is trapped inside a robot monkey, while the Big Five share his body. The remaining filler arcs, Waking of the Dragons and Casey Grand Prix, also feature little contributions from either, with Tristan mostly just serving as the jostling partner with Joey, and Téa being a supportive voice to Yugi. Téa also gets her very own running joke.
I need some female friends. This is why I need more female friends. I need some female friends.
It is pretty amusing, however, that anytime a female is introduced, Téa proceeds to react with intense jealousy.
Yugi doesn't like you and he never will.
Come Millennium World, Tristan and Téa are largely there as support figures once again. In the anime, Tristan gets to reprise his role of smacking Zork, which leads to him reprising his role of having his body taken over by the villain. Téa, meanwhile, has the simple but critical contribution of buying the cartouche that will eventually serve the group when they have to imagine the Pharaoh's hieroglyphic name onto it so he can learn his true name. She's also the one who had the idea to do exactly that. In the anime, both of them also get involved with summoning duel monsters to fruitlessly fight Zork and his minions. From this exercise, we can see that Téa and Tristan's contributions are spotty at best. Even something as bold as Tristan finding Mokuba's lifeless body is largely meaningless because he would have been freed just like Seto was the moment Yugi defeated Pegasus. Téa arguably is an even bigger MVP than Joey in the final act, but outside of that, she too is mostly there for the same reason she's always been there. Damsel, morale booster, and love interest of the main character. While neither Téa or Tristan do much independently, the other value a character can bring is how they relate to other characters, and there we do start to see a lot more value from these two. Téa from the get-go was Yugi's crush, so much so that anytime she fell in danger, Yugi was able to call forth the spirit of the puzzle, which is exactly why Shadi uses her as his hostage, so he can further test Yugi. Bear in mind that pre-Duelist Kingdom, Yugi couldn't call forth the Pharaoh at will, so Téa being in danger serving as the Pharaoh button means a lot. Because while Yugi may not be able to call forth the Pharaoh at will, he's still doing his best to save her, which for his growth is a show of courage for a kid who starts off the series very timid. Téa crushing on this other Yugi, i.e. the Pharaoh, also serves as a goalpost for Yugi. To get the girl, he needs to become the confident version of himself, a courage he can tap into at will, regardless of any magic relic hanging around his neck. Yugi's growth arc isn't solely dependent on Téa. After all, he must summon courage to save Grandpa, Joey, and several others on numerous occasions, but it is a driving force in several instances, especially early on when he doesn't realize there's another spirit taking over his body. As far as Tristan goes, he, like I mentioned, serves as the jostling partner with Joey. As Téa aptly puts it,
I think this is their bizarre way of showing each other they care.
unlike Joey's relationship with Yugi, which feels more big brother, little brother, Tristan and Joey are a more classic depiction of a friendship between two teenage boys, complete with roughhousing, liking the other sister, poking fun at each other, and too cool to tell each other how much their friendship means. The point here is that Téa and Tristan do each flesh out Yugi and Joey by introducing another dynamic that no other character in the series can replicate. The problem is that these are two characters who appear so regularly throughout the story, so while reason for their existence, even if the primary reason, can be as a function of developing another character, it shouldn't be their only reason. Not every character needs their own independent motivation. Some characters exist simply to develop others, see Mokuba to Seto. But Mokuba is very much a side character, whereas Téa and Tristan have far more screen time than several other characters who do have independent motivations and substantial character arcs. And when you pair constant presence with flat arc, that's a quick formula that nets out to a useless character. I'm going to put aside the obvious solution of turning Téa and Tristan into duelists. Virtual World shows that this certainly gives them something to do, but like I mentioned, with Duelist Kingdom and Battle City being tournament arcs, adding more good guys who are all fighting for the same thing, just for them to have to face each other eventually, can get real old real fast. So while it can work in arcs that are structured like Virtual World, where multiple enemies must be handled by multiple good guys, it wouldn't really function all that well with the two main dueling arcs. The main thing to fix Téa and Tristan is giving them more defined motivations, because without defining why they exist, not even the best writer can save a pointless character. And motivations need to come in two forms, tangible and intangible. Ideally though, not necessarily, the intangible relates to a major theme of the story, while the tangible one serves as a means to evolve the character intangibly. For example, Yugi's tangible motivation is making friends, while his intangible is gaining confidence and courage. Joey's tangible motivation is making a name for himself, while his intangible is becoming a better friend and person. Any character that appears as much as Téa and Tristan do need both types of motivations. For Téa, both these motivations are actually already there. Tangibly, she wants to be a dancer, while intangibly, she must learn selfless love. The latter motivation is substantially built on because she falls in love with the Pharaoh, but must come to terms with the fact that being his friend means helping him to finally rest in peace. It's her tangible line that feels a bit square peg and round hole once the story starts to focus on card games, especially because her desire to become a dancer is never mentioned in the Gallop anime outside of that one episode. That said, prompting her to tap into those skills on a more regular basis and really testing how good she is would have been a great use of her character. Her taking on the GOAT Johnny Steps is a solid example, it just happens to be a story irrelevant to the main plot. For Tristan, I do think he has a subtle intangible motivation, which is looking out for others. Tristan, being the oldest member of the group, suitably takes on the role of big brother, from wanting to protect Joey from Hiratani and his gang, to beating the Yami out of Bakura. As for his tangible line, he, like Téa, could have had a dream career, like wanting to become a cop or detective or heck, even a secret agent. His skill in shooting, interest in technology, tough guy vibe, and sneaking around to solve mysteries all align with this motivation, while also serving as a means of looking out for others, which is his intangible motivation. And look, neither of these are overly sophisticated character arcs, but like I said, their independent motivations don't have to be the biggest reason for their existence. It simply fleshes out their characters and gives them something to work toward beyond just cheerleading for friends. After all, these are teenagers in high school. They have dreams. Using the core story to help them work toward those dreams, while at the same time building them up from immature teens to selfless adults, would quickly take them from "Why are you even here?" to "Oh, hey, this is how they grew in the story." The second thing is building on their relationships with others. I think the writing does a good job of the Téa Yugi Pharaoh triangle and the Tristan Joey dynamic, but this is a friend group after all, yet it feels very siloed. We don't really get much between Téa and Joey, Téa and Tristan, or Tristan and Yugi, other than a few silly arguments.
In another few hours, the sun will rise.
That's not funny, Tristan.
Beyond that, a couple of wildcard interactions that I thought showed a lot of promise were Téa and Kaiba, and Tristan and Yami Bakura. Regarding the former, while Yugi and the Pharaoh have plenty of debates with Kaiba with respect to friendship, Téa brings a slightly different bend, approaching the theme with more sensitivity and care for life, while Kaiba retorts with disregard for both things. This comes to a head in Battle City where Téa saves Mokuba, then in turn, Kaiba saves Téa. The fact that both of these characters are the ones most connected to the Pharaoh after Yugi himself, but in completely different ways, makes for a very interesting arrangement. Like I said, Téa must come to terms with letting the Pharaoh go, whereas by the time we get to Dark Side of the Dimensions, Kaiba has handled the Pharaoh's departure in the complete opposite way, obsessing over trying to bring him back.
Bring him back, Yugi.
It's a fascinating dynamic that could have used more tangible moments beyond a Téa speech here and there, like the aforementioned Battle City moment. As for the latter, Tristan and Yami Bakura, we see this twice in the anime as mentioned previously. Coincidentally, both moments involve Tristan smacking Bakura. This relationship builds on Tristan's big brother motivation because he, more so than others, seems to show concern over the guy who has the literal embodiment of darkness taking over him anytime he appears. I would have liked to see one more interaction between them during Battle City, perhaps Tristan once again attempting to hide the ring from Bakura, prompting Bakura to have to take it back either in that moment or to start the next arc. The third thing I would have changed was turning the quest to retrieve the Pharaoh's name into a Death Tea structured obstacle. In the story, Yugi drives the team's entire progress, but this was the perfect opportunity to involve the others. The Pharaoh's tomb could have been guarded with more sophisticated traps that would have necessitated the unique skills each character brings to the table to get to where his name ultimately lies. Were Téa and Tristan missed opportunities? Overall, I'd say yes. They aren't as poorly done as some other friend group characters in subsequent series, but when the characters themselves acknowledge their role as cheerleader or the fact that they're excluded from all the important stuff,
Just some wannabe cheerleader who's always yelling from the sidelines, "Go Yugi, go Joey."
yes, there's probably more they could have done to establish them as characters independent of the other main characters, even if that independence wasn't the primary focus for their existence. One thing I will say though is that erasing them outright or even decreasing their screen time wouldn't have worked. Yugi makes a lot of friends along the way. Some of them end up being contained to specific moments such as Mai and Duke, and this definitely works for those characters, but you still need staples that will be there from start to finish. This couldn't be a story where the friend group was just a duo because the theme of friendship is too grand to be carried on 4 shoulders. Starting with Yugi's wish for friends, plural not singular, to the smiley face Téa draws across their hands, to needing numbers for Monster World and Death Tea, to coming together in spirit to block the mind scan, so much requires more than just the two. Plus, while Téa and Tristan may lack sufficiently developed motivations, they do still bring unique personalities that bounce off Yugi and Joey to create for a greater sense of camaraderie and more interesting dialogue and interactions. All this bubbles back up to the core theme of friendship because every friend adds a unique layer to the group. But what say you? How would you have liked to see Téa or Tristan more utilized? Also open to suggestions on other characters you'd like me to analyze as missed opportunities. Catch y'all next time.